Not over yet. The fuel crisis that's becoming a postcode lottery. Retailers say shortages are easing in many places, but still getting worse in others. The government says sending in the troops will sort it for good.
You need to take all possible precautions, but the supplies are getting in. They're getting to the forecourts, and people just need to be going about their business in the normal way.
Also this evening, Sarah Everard's murder leads to calls for an independent inquiry into how the police treat crimes against women. The Queen officially opens the Scottish Parliament for the first time without Philip by her side. And Mother Nature's spectacular light show shows no sign of ending in the Canary Islands.
This is ITV News with Gamal Fahnbulleh.
Good evening. The extent of Britain's fuel shortages tonight depends very much on who you believe and where you live. The government continues to insist that fuel stocks are stabilising, but that hasn't stopped them from engaging in several more U-turns. The Army will be helping to deliver fuel from Monday, for example, an idea ministers had rejected several times. Meanwhile, retailers say queues are fading in many places while still growing in others. Here's our political correspondent, Carl Dinnan.
Here's something you might not see every day. A petrol station with petrol, but with no queue. In Cheshire, the queues have died down, although there are still spending limits. A sign of some normality returning, perhaps.
I would say that they should go about their business in the normal way, insofar as they possibly can. I appreciate how frustrating it has been, how infuriating it has been for people. The situation is stabilising, but it's a problem that has been driven really by demand, not by supply.
It does, however, remain grim down south and may even be getting worse, although petrol retailers say South East England is now the exception.
It is generally good and improving news for much of the country, Midlands, North, Scotland, but I'm afraid, if anything, London, the South East, is faring even worse. Overall, only 16% of forecourts dry.
They want the 100 military tanker drivers due to begin deliveries on Monday to start in the worst hit areas. Labour say they should already be at work.
So it's right that the MOD are being brought in now, and of course they will do a fantastic job. But it's a very delayed reaction from the government because they have refused to understand the scale of the challenge ahead. And if they don't understand the scale of the challenge ahead, their response will always fall short.
Where there are still queues, patience is wearing thin.
We're fed up with the lack of leadership, just too little too late.
And there's people that have gone mad. I've picked up a few customers who have had fuel and they've gone to get a full tank without any reason why they need it.
Brexit is a big part of why we're in this mess. And yeah, Boris Johnson is the person that, should take all the blame for it, to be honest.
So as the Prime Minister heads to his party conference in Manchester this weekend, where this filling station was dry, he might still hope that his delegates get the train.
And Carl joins us now. Carl, on the eve of the Tory party conference, how worried should Boris Johnson be about this continuing problem?
Well, look, there are certainly some people, as you heard in my report just then, who blame the government for this crisis. But I think there is also a degree of evidence to show that some people are prepared to give the government the benefit of the doubt in this, partly, I suppose, because a lot of it is caused by human behaviour. And so I think the Prime Minister coming here won't necessarily be worried, particularly as it is now looking more like a geographically isolated problem, focused more in the southeast of England. But there are a number of big issues coming over the horizon, particularly cost of living issues, particularly around the cost of fuel, and in particular the poorest in society, who will see their universal credit drop by £20 on Wednesday, the very day when Boris Johnson gives his speech here to his conference.
OK, Carl, thank you. Calls for the police to review the way they investigate violence against women and girls continue today after the conviction of former police officer Wayne Couzens for the murder of Sarah Everard. The Home Secretary said harassment and flashing must be taken more seriously. Words that have been met with anger from some who say once again the onus is being placed on the victim and not the police. Dan Rivers has more.
7 months after her abduction, rape and murder, Sarah Everard's death still has the capacity to profoundly move people. Fresh flowers are still being left at the spot where she disappeared. But the case is also now prompting a wider debate about women's safety amid growing calls for a review of how the police deal with violence against women.
There needs to be an independent inquiry into the police and what's happening internally, because it seems to me that there is institutionalised misogyny, quite an endemic level.
Today, the Home Secretary told the Daily Telegraph she wanted women to have the confidence to call out harassment, but some feel that puts the onus on women instead of tackling police reforms.
The policing has to be better than it has been. It's been tragic and appalling. And we have to deal with something much more corrosive, both within the police and in wider society, which is this business where people feel that with impunity, they can do things to women and abuse, terrorise.
Trust is the bedrock on which the police operates. Advice this week from its most senior officer, Cressida Dick, that women who are concerned about the motives of policemen should run away from them, has done little to quell the calls for change at the top. But one former senior officer told me improving police culture must also accompany shifts in wider society.
This does require some real effort, but it's not just the police. This is a societal thing. It's not just about giving advice to women about how they should behave. What society needs to do is take full on the challenge of changing the behaviour of men.
Campaigners feel the despicable events which unfolded here in Clapham could be a watershed moment, not only for the safety of women, but also for the police. From something so appalling, perhaps there could be a lasting legacy of change, but they feel that will only happen with a full public inquiry. Dan Rivers, ITV News, Clapham.
The Scottish Parliament has been sitting since the end of May, but the Queen's official opening had to wait until today. The pandemic caused the delay, and even now, although Her Majesty appeared in person, much of the celebration had to be pre-recorded. And one person in particular was absent, who had previously always been at Her Majesty's side, the Duke of Edinburgh, who died earlier this year, but was remembered by the Queen, who spoke of their happy memories. Sam Holder reports.
Among the bagpipes and the beat of military drums, the Queen welcomed by a chorus of cheers and boos. Her Majesty is officially neutral on the question of Scottish independence, attending the opening of the Scottish Parliament for the first time without Prince Philip. She spoke about what Scotland meant to them as a couple.
I have spoken before of my deep and abiding affection for this wonderful country, and of the many happy memories Prince Philip and I always held of our time here. It is often said that it is the people that make a place, and there are few places where this is truer than in Scotland.
The Queen will be back in the country next month for COP26. Today, Her Majesty urged leaders to tackle climate change.
There is a key role for the Scottish Parliament, as with all parliaments, to help create a better, healthier future for us all, and to engage with the people they represent, especially our young people.
First Minister Nicola Sturgeon said the pandemic had provided a historic opportunity for change.
And for those of us in public service, it has reminded us that with collective political will, changes that we might previously have thought impossible or just too difficult can indeed be achieved.
Whether that's tackling climate change or another independence referendum is not yet clear. Sam Holder, ITV News.
America's envoy to the Glasgow COP26 summit later this month said today he's optimistic that progress can be made, but the clock is ticking. Speaking at a preliminary meeting in Milan, John Kerry said governments have just 30 days left to work together and come up with concrete commitments.
This is doable. The bottom line is, folks, that as we stand here today, we believe we can make enormous progress in Glasgow, moving rapidly towards the new goals that the science is telling us we must achieve.
Meanwhile, in the United States, the number of deaths from COVID-19 has surpassed 700,000. Healthcare workers there say they are increasingly frustrated as tens of millions of Americans refuse to be vaccinated. Around 56% of Americans have the jab. And protests are taking place across the US this weekend against moves in several states to reduce access to abortions. It comes after President Joe Biden urged a federal judge to block a law which has prevented abortions in the state of Texas since last month. On to football, and Manchester United missed the opportunity to go top of the Premier League for a few hours at least after they were held to a 1-1 draw at home by Everton. With Cristiano Ronaldo starting on the bench, it was the visitors who almost snatched all 3 points. Will Mott was watching.
With the top two playing tomorrow, the early kick-off was a chance for Manchester United or Everton to take their place. And with the midweek miracle man left on the bench, it was Anthony Martial who had the game's first big chance.
Back post, Martial, opportunity, couldn't direct it goalwards.
As the world's greatest sprinter looked on, the home side came to life just before half-time. Bruno Fernandes setting up Martial to dispatch a lightning bolt of his own.
Big opportunity here, 1-0 to Manchester United.
But midway through the second half, Everton showed off their pace. A blistering counter-attack finding Andros Townsend.
1-1. He's done it again, Andros Townsend.
A crisp finish with a Ronaldo-style celebration to boot. By now, Ronaldo was off the bench, but there was no late drama today.
The winner, is he offside there?
Only a potential Everton winner ruled offside by VAR. And there was no doubt who was happier at full time. Will Mott, ITV News.
And Chelsea are top of the Women's Super League after a comprehensive 3-1 win over Brighton. Beth England scored the decisive goal for the reigning champions with 10 minutes remaining. But Arsenal women can reclaim top spot if they avoid defeat in their match tonight. Now, it's now 2 weeks into the volcanic eruption on La Palma in the Canary Islands, and scientists say the volcano has got much more aggressive. There's thought to be little danger to life, though, after thousands were moved out of harm's way. They and the rest of the world can now watch safely from a distance as nature puts on a spectacular show. Chloe Keedy has more.
As a cockerel crowed to signal dawn on the Spanish island of La Palma, its volcano was already wide awake. For 2 weeks now, molten lava has been flowing down this mountainside, and it shows no sign of slowing down, stopping only when it reaches the sea. In the past few hours, 2 new vents have appeared. Each one is like another mouth, furiously spitting out fountains of lava and ash. More than 6,000 people have already been evacuated, including hundreds of tourists. Thousands more are confined to their homes, with others left trying to scrape away a carpet of black ash. This woman said the streets, as you can see, are totally covered in ashes this morning. More than ever, I think it's the most horrible day since the volcano erupted. We have to protect ourselves with hats, umbrellas, whatever, because your head, your clothes, everything gets covered with ashes. The volcano has already spewed out more than twice as much molten rock as it did the last time it erupted in 1971, and scientists say it's likely to continue.
Because it's basically, erupting along something like that looks like a crack, you actually get these sort of lines of different small centres. If we look at historical eruptions, which are about as good a guide as we have, most of the eruptions seem to be lasting between sort of 1.5 to 2.5 months, something like that.
Tonight, the sky over La Palma is thick with black smoke. The volcano it is coming from may only just be getting into its stride. Chloe Keedy, ITV News.
And finally, following the release of Daniel Craig's last Bond film this week, it's been announced that the actor is getting a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. It'll be placed at 7007 Hollywood Boulevard as a nod to Bond's code name, and it'll be right next to the star of fellow James Bond actor Sir Roger Moore. And that's it. I'm back with the late news at 10:15. Until then, have a very good evening. Bye-bye for now.